so what can we do? We have some reactive efforts. I'm just going to quickly go through what we worked with on for Ode to Joy, which is a movie that came out in 2019, and then Walking Through Peanut Butter, which is Anna's amazing project. So just really quickly, there was this American Life segment. So this is, as Anna said, it's based on a true experience of a man, Matt Freaking, who I've actually met, a wonderful scientist. That the episode of This American Life on NPR was based on his experience. So real man. And he does talk about having narcolepsy and cataplexy and how his sleepiness affects his relationship, and his cataplexy, he had very severe cataplexy, affected his relationship. And so from that NPR segment, actually a few movies were inspired by that. A short movie called Cataplexy, which is on Amazon Prime. And then also this movie, and the announcement came out just the next year, that a Modern Family director and a Colbert writer were teaming up to make a comedy called Joy, that was based on this NPR segment. And basically that, the thought of joy as a trigger that to be problematic in a relationship. And so that I started reaching out as soon as I heard about it in 2012, reaching out to people who knew people that, were involved with this and did speak to them. They said that they would get in touch with me later when they were closer. I offered to do free consulting, however I could help. And the movie kind of shifted around from a few different production houses, I believe. And so it came back on my radar in early 2018. I saw it was at a new, had a new home, I guess, in Hollywood. And I started looking for connection, gathering, advice and research examples, which is why I got into all the research of how do other communities deal with this kind of stuff. And I realized at that point it had already been filmed. So they'd already done the filming in 2017. I found that via Instagram. So it had been filmed, but what else could be done, right? Eventually I tried many different things. I made contact in early 2019, and this was by guessing email addresses. That is essentially,
oh my gosh,
how I made contact. My first guess was wrong. My second guess was right. And the person wrote back very, very quickly, which was nice. But said they would kind of be in touch later. I was like, how about now? And then the film was going to be in the Phoenix Film Festival. And so we have we have two board members now in the Phoenix area. So I flew to Phoenix to see it there because it's one of the first places you could actually see it. And so I watched it there in a packed audience for the first time. And the narcolepsy community really, more broadly found out about all this in that same time period, because the movie was starting to be reviewed as people were watching it in film festivals. So people with narcolepsy started to get really concerned about this, what was happening. There were some delays in the, production. And then I'll never forget, July 8th, finding out, all right, it's a go. It's going to be, released with IFC Films. And so, it took about a week to get a call with IFC Films. And then another week I was able to actually speak to the director, and the movie came out August 9th. So it was just exactly a month from when we found out, and then it was going to be opening. And this is the timeline of the opportunity to try to work with them at such a late stage, unfortunately. My ask to the director, and I have to say, very thankful that it was a woman with idiopathic hypersomnia who actually worked in the film industry, who helped me make the connection to the director. So, a wonderful connection ultimately to be able to speak to the director. And I asked him to do a PSA together, a public service announcement about narcolepsy for social media, to create resource information for the closing credits. That basically something like, if anything that you've seen in this movie, seems similar to experience of you or a loved one, please go to a sleep center or find a sleep specialist. So it wasn't even about Project Sleep. It was just about getting people to see a sleep specialist, because none of that behavior is, well, he does have a sleep specialist in the movie, but still just to reinforce that this is a real condition. to do media training for the stars and the director, and to do a discussion guide, and have the ability to use the poster on the cover of our discussion guide about the movie. So we were able to do most of that except for the credits. The closing credits, they said it was too late. You know, those had been locked for many months, which is disappointing because I had been trying for many months. So, but we were able to do the other things on here, which is really great. In addition, we did some more of our own things. I made a cheat sheet for sleep doctors so they could understand about the film, like what they needed to know was depicted, so they could talk to patients about it, and publish a review and put up stuff on our website and this discussion guide. And we did do the PSA. I just really want to quickly mention that I was talking about this with my best friend, and she has a friend that works at Netflix, and that friend said that they thought, never would the director do this with me. You know, that this would be unheard of to do something like a PSA within, you know, an organization like mine. I'm actually glad I didn't know that that was what this person thought in advance, because that maybe would have made me more scared to ask. I thought the ask was perfectly reasonable going into it. And it was really interesting to learn after that another entertainment, you know, industry person would say, oh no, they'll never do that. Well, they didn't mess with Julie Flygare, you know. But it's just really interesting to see that even still in 2019, that you know, someone else in the industry would say, never ever would someone do a PSA with you know, an organization about when their whole movie is based about a condition that we live with. So interesting, different perspectives. And now we get to talk about walking through peanut butter, Anna's amazing project. And I put your synopsis here. Do you want to? I mean, I think that's from IMDb, so I don't know if that's the right synopsis.
Is it? I don't remember where I put things. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I can talk about what it. Do you want me to share what the story is about?
Yeah, and how did you come about to, you know, thinking that you would do this, and
sure,
where you are, all the things. But maybe just start, if you want to read it, because I always think it's good to read what's on the screen, if that's okay.
Oh, sure, yeah. So a very basic synopsis is 22-year-old workaholic Jessie moves to the city that never sleeps to be a stand-up comic. She also has narcolepsy, a chronic sleep disorder even she knows little about. In this short pilot, Jessie discovers a new symptom, sudden muscle weakness triggered by strong emotions. Her trigger, laughter. So yeah, in general, it's about a stubborn, overachieving new college grad, Jessie, who dives headfirst into the comedy world of the city that never sleeps, which is the perfect place to adapt to her newly diagnosed narcolepsy. And I had originally wanted to, you know, write a full 22-minute pilot, comedy pilot, and you know, resources. As a person, I was living in New York City at the time. I'm now in LA, and you know, I'm a writer and an actor, so ultimately I wanted to I wanted to have something written, and I also wanted a footage. It's really important as an actor to make your own work. So I ended up shortening it down to more of like a digital content length, and which is great because when I produced the film, essentially it is a 10-minute short film. So it's really easy to just slip into film festivals that way. But it is now what I'm working on now is developing it into a digital series that could live on, you know, on some sort of streaming platform, YouTube, etc. But it is a dark comedy based on my own experiences navigating the New York City comedy world while living with narcolepsy. And you know, as assuming all of you know, on a given day, a person with narcolepsy feels like, you know, how a person without narcolepsy would feel if they hadn't slept in 48 to 72 hours. And, you know, to me, that is, you know, the wonderful irony and conflict of being a stand-up comedian whose cataplexy trigger is the punchline of her jokes. That aside, Hollywood loves a story about a really nice person who unravels into a mess. And I think in terms of towing the line of how you portray somebody with any sort of serious chronic health condition or disability, it's really important to me to show their humanness in every way, to get out of the arena of, for lack of a better word, and apologies to your younger audiences, but inspiration porn, that happens with lots of portrayals of these sorts of conditions, diseases, disorders, disabilities, etc. And something that I've dealt with, and I assume I'm not the only one, is in terms of going on my own journey as a person with narcolepsy and some of the other chronic conditions that I live with, is learning how to advocate for myself and get in touch with my own body and who I am and this new identity. You do become extremely self-absorbed, and that is a helpful, good thing. It is a journey I'm still on, but what kind of mistakes do I make with my own relationships in the process? And I relate it to, if anybody's a fan of the show Shrill on Hulu, that's a journey that the main character on that show, who is extremely sympathetic, but as she is on her own journey, that is something that the other characters, her friends in the show, will point out as well, that they're like, you're just thinking about yourself. And as a main character in a show that tends to be all about them, I think that that's an important thing to point out. But as Julie says, or maybe she mentioned it or not, I'm not sure, but we've gotten into a few festivals, which have or have not happened, given the state of the pandemic. We are an official selection of the, yes, there we go. We're an official selection of the Los Angeles Women in Film Festival that is waiting to occur in person, so they can have the experience of streaming in person, live in a theater. So that'll be really exciting. And also, it's not on here, but the Over the Rhine International Film Festival, which is in Cincinnati, Ohio, my home state. And I love that festival. It was originally a chapter of the Real Abilities Film Festival, which I know you're going to bring up as well, Julie. And Real Abilities festivals, they have one in New York and LA as well, and I'm sure maybe some other cities around the country. And that, though, they celebrate stories and filmmakers' representation of disabilities of all kinds. And the Real Abilities in Cincinnati ended up expanding to celebrate and embrace stories of marginalized communities of all kinds. So I think they're an exciting festival. We're also a finalist for Jelly Film Festival. And we won an award. Our first award was at the Independent Shorts Award here in LA for Best Women's Short.
How do those awards play into the process? I know it seems like I know it's probably very commonplace to you, but like I'm a little outside that world. And so can you explain to us sort of how this process happens?
Yeah, so it's one of the many ways that you can gain recognition and exposure, just to get your story on the map and to the eyes of various gatekeepers and players in the industry. Especially for me as somebody who had just moved to Los Angeles from New York City, and is, still making connections here. Submitting your project, whether it's a script or a film or a web series, to film festivals or script festivals is a great way to make those connections, and it can open doors, and also help you gotten some good festival recognition. It can help you pitch yourself to various industry people. Does that help?
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. I love what you were talking about, like, I think a little bit about character development or sort of, so I guess you probably don't want to give away too much about like, well, you shared a little bit. It's about some of her development will be about balancing, not becoming too self, absorbed or something.
Yeah.
But I think that there are a lot of really interesting, and that's why I wish Ode to Joy had included some more uh, experts or consultants from the narcolepsy patient community, because I think there were opportunities there to see a character develop. This starts with a very stubborn character who doesn't want to like let love in because he's afraid he's going to have cataplexy. And nothing really develops. He just finally lets love in, and then he's going to have to accept cataplexy too. And I thought there could have been some really interesting parts about maybe accepting treatment, because he had, said no to all treatments. And so there could have been some more like facing his fears in more realistic ways that could have made him sort of have to overcome certain things to develop as a human.
Yeah.
And so
I think, go ahead.
There's just so much, like so many different things like that to narcolepsy. I think we all, one of my favorite quotes is we're always evolving, and some of that evolution is what draws you to different characters from TVs and movie, is the shared humanity of evolving, right?
Yeah. And I think that, so many shows, especially with young adults, who would be, the target audience of this, people of, Gen Z, millennial, etc. I'm probably getting all of those wrong. There's too many letters, showing my age. But I think that there's a lot of shows about identity, right? And like, it doesn't matter how specific the story is. In fact, in comedy, they tell you that the more specific, the funnier. If you're writing, say for example, like the fact that in that Simpsons episode, they use the word hypocretin. Like literally, how much more specific could you get? Like you said, only a small percentage of people watching that episode knew what that word meant, but it was funny probably to hear that, simply due to like the plosives, hypocretin. That makes it a funnier sounding word. But when you list out specifics, it tends to be more universal than if you just try to generalize, because people can find their way through a really nuanced, specific, niche story, more than they can through something that's trying to be just like appealing to everybody. And I think that an identity crisis, it's often talked about in terms of like a midlife crisis, but goodness gracious, the quarter life crisis that happens, not even at 25, but like as you're graduating, the coming of age is not just a late teens thing. The coming of age to me has been my entire 20s, and it has almost everything to do with my narcolepsy journey. God, I hope that I would have had this journey without it, but I don't know how I would, how it would have looked like, because I did graduate extremely naive and extremely stubborn, and would not ask for help, would not take a break, did not think that narcolepsy was going to affect my life. I'm like, I got a prescription and I've got a diagnosis. Boom. Okay, I'm done with that. And it wasn't until I read your book, Julie, that I was like, oh, yeah, no, this is a lot more. And it's been, 8 years or so of figuring out my limits and my boundaries. And I think that whole journey that I'm sure everybody can relate to, whether or not they have narcolepsy or not, is extremely relatable. Mm-hmm. And in terms of even beyond that, or potentially more a specific part of that, something that's really exciting to me that I've spoken to you about before, Julie, in terms of pitching this show, because it can be hard to if people, you're not sure if people are going to want to hear about the specifics of narcolepsy or what I just talked about, and you need to have sort of a different angle in terms of theme and tone, and not tone, but in terms of theme and message. And I think that who better to talk about being part of the younger generations right now, who are simultaneously members of the burnout generation and also constantly the targets of the self-care industry. Who better to talk about that than a person with narcolepsy or idiopathic hypersomnia or a sleep disorder in general? Because when I talk about narcolepsy to people, I don't think that they're so fascinated. I very rarely ever have had like a conversation with an acquaintance or a stranger about my narcolepsy and they not ask a follow-up question or find it interesting. And I think it has less to do with their interest in my life and my disorder than sleep and exhaustion and the stigma of laziness and this sort of 24-hour email culture that we live in, 5-hour energy shots and, having a smartwatch that reminds you to breathe, but also gives you notifications every time you get a new email and a text message and you're afraid to turn those off. Like the conflict between that, you cannot be both. And I think people with narcolepsy, especially in that generation, are really, we're forced to confront that. And not everyone else does confront that. And I think we all need to. So totally funny material. I don't think I need to tell you guys why it's ripe for comedy because it's full of conflict.
Yeah.
Just rambled on. Sorry, Julie.
No, there's just so many great themes that are true to the narcolepsy experience. And I think, one of the most powerful takeaways for people too is what you said about being specific and that not trying to always, that there are these general themes that will resonate with people, but as, sticking true to your experience as a person with narcolepsy, if you are a writer or storyteller. So I guess I will go through these additional resources, but I want to know if you have any advice for people that are interested in telling their story through comedy or writing, similar to what I asked Al.
Yeah, I think for me, my vehicle is humor and comedy, so I'm going to stick with that lane. I think that, I'm just going to echo the specificity and sticking with your own experience. I think it's really easy to get lost in, well, is this going to be representative of like all people with narcolepsy? Is this going to be representative of all people with narcolepsy and cataplexy? Well, what about people who have mild cataplexy? What about people who have severe cataplexy? Like you had in one of your bullet points, there's no such thing as like one accurate portrayal. And, it's hard to do, but to stay and to stick to your own perspective, because that's all you can speak for with your own story, while also being responsible and respectful of other people's experiences and not making generalizations. So again, it's just another important thing to keep in mind in terms of specificity. But write, find other people who celebrate your story. If you are in a community of people that don't want to hear about it, if you're in a community of people that, is not going to accommodate any of your access needs, who aren't interested in having conversations about ableism and about it's not just a joke, or it's just a joke, or thinking about using more responsible language, it's okay to find a new community. And they're out there, we're out there, you find people online who are doing things that you really relate to and reach out to them and see if you guys can start a writers group or an accountability group. It's just good to find other like-minded people to support you, so you feel emboldened to share.
And okay, I know I said, but one more question. Then how do you manage it? Like, how do you take off, that it's a long process, to get what you're, eventually what you hope to. So
Oh,
how do
yeah.
you manage the process and knowing that you're making progress and hold yourself like accountable over time to get this done?
Yeah, it's a question I constantly have for everybody else. It's hard. I guess, yeah, that would be the best piece of advice is to do your best to not beat yourself up. Um, it's really tempting to look at how much your friend or someone on Instagram has written in a day or has, I'm an actor too, and I consider my work as an actor to be equally as important in terms of how I show up for the community. And if there's people out there who are doing more and you feel this constant pressure, it's a structural issue. It's a structural issue within the industry and within culture at large. But in terms of Hollywood, no matter what job you're doing, if you're in the props department, if you're a PA on set, it is a hustle industry. This has come a lot more to light during the pandemic, but I don't think it's going to be an issue that is solved right now. Overall health and wellness has not ever been placed at the center of people's lives, and work-life balance. It is not as big of a conversation in the industry. You're sort of, especially, like as an actor, as a writer, you're taught that, if you don't have that hustle and that drive, and if you're not willing to work for free and work for exposure as compensation, then you don't want it enough and you don't deserve it. And that just automatically counts out people who cannot afford to do that, either financially or with their energy stores, like that's one way of not being able to afford to do that. It counts out so many different types of marginalized groups, right? So it's not you. You're not lazy. You're not any less talented. It is difficult. It really is. And to remind yourself that you deserve to be here just as much as everybody else. That's the thing that keeps me going, is knowing that I refuse to let any of my health, like the facts of my health and my own identity, be a barrier to me achieving my dreams, whether or not other people agree with me or not. And whether or not that may be the fact at that moment. I refuse to believe that. So I encourage other people to do the same if they also believe that.
Yes, those are wise words. So let's just go through a few of these additional resources that Anna has mentioned. I think this one we didn't mention yet, but it's a great one, Respectability. They do a lot of great things, but some of what they do is reaching out to entertainment professionals to promote positive, accurate, diverse, and inclusive media portrayals on TV and in film, both in front of and behind the camera. And they have a very cool summer lab program for entertainment professionals with disability. So I think that's just a really wonderful program that you can look up more about.
They have some great webinars, especially from last year's 30th anniversary of the ADA. They had a ton of great content that they still have online on their website. They had different stars of different TV shows on, and it was just great to hear from everybody. So I recommend checking that out.
Oh, cool. All right. So that's a great one. And then Real Abilities Film Festival. I think that last I saw is something like 14 different cities across the country.
Oh, wow.
But they're the largest film festival in the US dedicated to promoting awareness and appreciation of the lives, stories, and artistic expressions of people with different disabilities. So definitely check them out. We've mentioned them. Anna mentioned them a little bit already. This is just one of my favorite, more general podcast episodes from the Stanford Social Innovation Review, I think is what the name of that SSIR stands for. And it's this storytelling and social change episode. And there's a lot of great quotes, but one of them is, it's about how you create an ecosystem that can allow for authentic stories to be told. And they have some really cool people from entertainment, talking about different communities and representations. So just one of my favorite episodes that's super inspiring to me. And of course, Rising Voices of Narcolepsy, for our program to foster a new generation of narcolepsy patient advocates, spreading awareness via speaking and writing, while also empowering the participants. So Anna was one of our early, I think you were 2017, were you a first year?
Indeed.
Yes, and she was a writer, and the name of her first essay, I think, was Walking Through Peanut Butter.
No, it wasn't. It was Laugh at Me, Not My Narcolepsy, or something like that.
Yes. But then it was a line in there where you talked about walking through peanut butter. Yes. Mm-hmm. And so, please get involved in that. We have our training this summer, and we're really excited for a new group of people to participate. And just remember that this is an ongoing series. We'll have a toolkit that's going to come out with some of the great things that you guys have shared online, and that Anna's been talking about, and of course, Al, and all the different resources and things, and links to all those different studies in case you want to, rabbit hole down some of this research as much as I like it. So we do also have Napping and Narcolepsy as our next episode, or our next broadcast at the end of June. And we're really excited about that, talking about, is napping a symptom? Is it a bad thing? Is it a good thing? How do we incorporate in our lives in ways that, make sense? So we're really excited for that discussion. And I want to check back with Lauren, because I know that we just went through a lot, and I know it's very, very late, but is there any other extra comments from the community that you'd like to share?
There are about a jillion wonderful comments about Ode to Joy, about symptom representation and public perception, about joking and disparagement humor, and even people are commenting that they themselves even thought it was a joke when they were first diagnosed. And honestly, I don't know how to choose which comments. So I'm just going to say, Anna, that people are really appreciating you and your work and the concept of walking through peanut butter. And Victoria said she loves that because laughter is her biggest trigger. Hot Nerd Club says she loves your determination and just encourages everybody to go after their dreams. And people are really excited to see Walking Through Peanut Butter and hopefully your series someday. So just lots of appreciation and encouragement there. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, everybody. It really, truly means the world. I would not have been able to finish the project without Julie's help and her wider network, and all of the incredible people with narcolepsy who really came out and were the predominant, like hands down, largest majority of the supporters for our crowdfunding campaign. And I truly cannot thank you enough. It is, all of this has been with you guys in mind. And with that said, I just want to, I've had people ask me like, what's happening? And I don't know. What I just want to, reiterate maybe, that it takes a long time to produce anything. It takes a long time for an idea to come to fruition in a way that eyeballs might see, or people might be able to experience in any way. I do hope and plan for the 10-minute short that I did make, that will be online for everybody to see at some point. While we're in festivals, it's sort of a rule you can't have it public. So we're just waiting for all of that to happen and finish, but you will be able to see that. Just know that, smallest percentage of projects get made in Hollywood, whether or not they should or should not be made. And I just want you all to know that that I plan on continuing the story, if not in this format. It is not something that I'm done with. And like I said, I think it's really important, no matter who you are in the industry, to really show up as much as you're comfortable with, but to show up as your true self, as you need and want to be. And so I do take my work as an actor and a comedian with narcolepsy and cataplexy very seriously. And in terms of showing up and advocating for myself, it does make a difference in just in small circles. So I hope that other people will join me.
Mm-hmm. You know, a few other people in the
I do, yeah.
yeah, and we've seen some online, and some really cool people out there. I'm just always amazed every day by the people with narcolepsy that I find, and I don't mean that in a but I mean everyone has such cool interests, and I just never would have met such amazing people doing different things and fascinated by different things. Lots of nerds, different kinds of nerds. So, so we're just so grateful. Thank you, Anna, so much for all that you've been doing. And it was, we're really happy to support you and hope that, we can just keep cheering you on whenever the appropriate times are. But if it took, Ode to Joy, something like 8 years to be made, then we understand.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you all. You truly don't have any idea. I mean, I think Julie has an idea because she receives all of your support every day, and I know how meaningful it is to her, but it really does make a huge difference. And I just feel very lucky to have your support. So thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in today. I hope you have a good rest of the week. We'll see you next month, and probably, if not before, for different things. I'll be reading chapter 3 of my memoir on Instagram tomorrow night. It's got the sex scene. Really excited to read that.
Woo!
So we have that as another story, and
everybody's favorite chapter.
Oh my God, not mine. And so, but I think I just hope that we get more stories out there. So thank you for tuning in today and being part of this community. And we're just hoping to share many more portrayals of narcolepsy that move towards some accurate ones, or that resonate more with our experiences. So thanks again, guys. And we will see you next month. Let me see if I can. All right. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye, Lauren. Bye, Anna.